think there's something wrong with what we're eating. There's more and more evidence that dietary sensitivity, for example, is linked to conditions like schizophrenia. And also, your gut bacteria, turns out, which you have a lot of, you have about 100 times more bacterial cells in your body than human cells. But the gut biome produces a lot of neurochemicals. And so it does play an integral role in the regulation of your mood, which is also a very strange thing. One possibility is that, well, let's say you eat a lot of carbohydrates and sugar. Okay, so what happens is that you grow bacteria in your gut that really like carbohydrates and sugar. Well, so then you think, well, I'm always having cravings for carbohydrates and sugar. You're having the cravings, you think. Well, maybe not. Maybe what's happened is that, through a Darwinian process, you've encouraged the growth of bacteria that really like sugar and carbohydrates.
And you think that same bacteria is messing with people's mood? Maybe.
Yes, and it's also messing with their cravings. I mean, we're really walking oceans, like we're big creatures. Yeah. I mean, we're not big compared to a Douglas fir or the sun, but we're pretty big creatures, and we are liquid. Most of us is liquid, and if you saturate yourself with carbohydrates and sugar, then you are invaded by the bacteria that live on those things, and so that's not necessarily so good for you.
At no time in human history has our species been so bombarded by stuff designed to get us hooked. Companies compete on the very basis of creating ever more habit-forming products. And it's no different with our food. Food corporations hire scientists to engineer the most irresistible habit-forming foods. Sugar is currently their go-to ingredient. These guys have flipped the script on us. They are using the very brain imaging technologies that we use to try to find cures for addiction. Why do I care about this so much? It's actually not the rising rates of obesity worldwide that keeps me up at night. It's two other very disturbing trends. And the first is the appearance of adult diseases in children. Type 2 diabetes is linked to heavy sugar consumption and especially sugary drinks. It's called adult onset diabetes because in my parents' generation, we only saw it in adults. Today, 1 out of 4 American teenagers is pre-diabetic or diabetic. Our food supply is making some of us very sick.
If you look around the world, you might think, well, the happiest people are those where the standard of living is the highest. That's actually not the case. And you think, okay, but why wouldn't that be the case? It's like, what do you want? Malaria and death at 40? Obviously not. But then you think, okay, what's the price you pay for a high standard of living? Well, that's easy. You virtually always sacrifice the present for the future. You're always working. Most people in the modern world, weirdly enough, have far too much to do. 2 career families and a couple of kids. It's like, man, you're done. That's 60 hours a week of flat out work. So, and that can be too much. And then I also think, because our society is philosophically unstable, and that's sort of reflected in this polarization, is that people are doubtful about whether their lives have any meaning, for example. Why bother? What's the use of it? Who cares? It's like, what difference is it going to make in a million years, And life is hard, and if you just have a nihilistic viewpoint, then it's easy to be swamped by doubts and existential angst and all of that. And I think that's a mistake, because I think that your life can be very meaningful. It's proportionate to the responsibility that you take on. And you can learn that by watching when you're engaged in the world, and what works to sort of protect you from feelings of isolation and doom. So I think part of it is the complexity of the modern world. I also can't shake the sneaking suspicion that it has something to do with our diet. We know that obesity is skyrocket, and probably the reason for that, it's not exactly certain. There might be complicated reasons for it, but certainly one of the reasons is that people eat far too many carbohydrates.
So what do we do about this problem? How do we fix it? The solutions are actually remarkably simple, and here's how it works. Food companies have gotten very good at seducing us towards their products in ways that we barely even notice. All of the most effective public health strategies just do the opposite. They gently nudge us away from the unhealthy stuff. It's simple. We just flip the script back. So, for example, soda companies, they intentionally keep their prices down so that we'll buy more. If we put a tax on this soda, that raises the price a little and gently nudges us away. If food corporations are barraging our children with advertisements for Captain Crunch and Cocoa Puffs, we can just take those ads off the air. If they pay grocery stores to put candy at eye level for our little children, we can put it a little higher on the shelf. Small changes can add up to big shifts in the environment. We know this from decades of research on addictive substances. I understand we really would all like to believe that we're in charge, that we have complete freedom over what we eat. But how free can we be living in a saturated environment, one that continuously surrounds us with food products carefully engineered to get us hooked and keep us coming back for more? We don't have to live in an environment that is rigged to get us fat and then blames us for the health consequences and the medical bills.